Welcome to round 4 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of August 30th. I'm Terry Morrow, and I'm here with Nicole Eridix.
Hello.
And Catherine Haleko.
Hello.
As moms of teens and young adults, we've survived those little kid days, yet we're still rethinking the decisions we've made all through our kids' lives and worrying about what's going on right now. Today's Thursday, which means it's time to give in to our obsessing. And today we're obsessing about advice for parenting kids who are in school. Recently we did an episode on one good piece of parenting advice. And today we're going to offer one good piece of school advice, or maybe even the best school advice anyone ever gave us. I don't think anybody ever gave me school advice. I think most people who gave me advice about school was in the nature of the sit down and shut up variety, and I did not heed it. But I do have a few suggestions for people. But Nicole, you're like the expert in this area, having been a teacher. What would be your best piece of advice for parents? Either something that worked for you or something you wish that parents would have done, like possibly sit down and shut up.
Check your kid's backpack. Please. Check. Yeah. Follow up. Make sure that you've got the announcements and just take that time. Don't trust your kid to do that. I mean, unless of course you have an overly responsible child that you can absolutely trust. But honestly, just stay on top of things as best you can in that very small way.
Yes. Used to be one of my favorite parts of the day when the kids came home and I got to go through their backpacks and look at all the stuff they did and look for notices and all that stuff. It made me feel part of it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't care if you don't read to your kid 15 minutes every night. I don't care because they're going to read in school. I don't care if you can't volunteer for the bake sale. I don't care if you can't donate, money to whatever. I don't care if you can't come to parent night, but just check your kid's backpack and help your kid stay on top of what's happening at school. That's all we ask for.
That is very good advice. Yes. And teachers, put stuff in there for us to look at.
And then teachers can also support that, because I know there are teachers that unfortunately don't do that. But
so disappointing. It's is there something here for me?
Well, but I'm not saying don't be a helicopter parent, but just pull the papers out, have a look at what's due.
Totally gonna be a helicopter parent.
Check up on your kid and see where they're at. Just that level of involvement. We don't need any of the extra fluff. It's all just fluff. Just be involved in that way. Just help them, because that stuff matters. It's when, listen to me, I'm getting all up in my soapbox here. But when the kid comes to school the next day and they've forgotten a costume or they've forgotten a project or they've forgotten, that puts them more behind in so many ways than what, say, not reading 15 minutes did. So that's my big thing, or if they didn't study for a test I'm not saying force your kids, sit down and force them, but just set some kind of a routine where you're just going to take 5 minutes and go through their stuff and then check back with them at the, in the middle of the night or middle of the evening and say, how's it going? Mm-hmm. Honestly.
Yeah.
You can be sitting in front of the TV and do that. Yeah. That's my little piece of advice.
That's good advice.
So,
what's your favorite piece of school parenting advice, Catherine? You have some things that have worked for you?
Well, I don't know about, it's tough. I think one would be don't compare your 2 or 3 kids to each other. They may need very different things when it comes to school. And I feel like I know a lot of families where different kids go to different schools. And I used to just be like, oh my gosh, how do you, the logistics of that just sound exhausting.
Yeah.
But if you have options and there are things that would work better for one kid versus another. Like, you know, take advantage of that. Because I think there are so many more options now. You know, when I was a kid, you either went to public school or you went to Catholic school, and that was it. Like, there was nothing else. But, you know, these days, I just, even in the fairly small community where I am, there's more choices. So, you know, that's, or if it's about, you know, this teacher isn't a great fit, but another one in the building might be a better fit. I mean, I think that's always super dicey, like trying to get your kid changed into a different class. But if it's necessary, you know, sometimes it is. I mean, I had a situation where my kids were in like looped classrooms where they had the same teacher for 3 years. And then, and I had one where the one kid had that teacher for 3 years, and then for the following 3 years, the second kid had that teacher. Oh, no. And it wasn't as good of a fit with the second kid. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And, you know, I wasn't able to change it, or I didn't seek to change it because there just really weren't great options. But, but, you know, that was a long time to be with one teacher.
That is.
That's a really long time.
Yeah. And it's probably a long time for the teacher to be with some students, too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But, yeah, those kind of things are so difficult to resolve, even though everybody involved may realize that they need to be. But, of course, once you switch one kid, then are you going to have to switch?
Yeah.
That's difficult. That's such a difficult situation.
Right.
But, yeah, if there's any way you can.
And I was able to do it last year in high school. And for a particular class, you know, like at the semester break, you know, it just was not at all working with this one particular class. And it was partly the level, and it was partly the teacher and the combination with the kid. And the guidance counselor, I will say, was very good about helping us switch it. You know, in the high school, they're very like, we don't change classes for, you know, unless it's been a mistake or there's, you know, a level change or whatever. But she was good about like, this is necessary. You know, this is important for the kids learning. So
That's good. Feels very good when you do manage to accomplish something like that.
Right.
And then you go, please, please, please let this one work out so that it doesn't look like a mistake.
Yes, exactly. How about you, Terry?
Well, for my part, I will stick up for the fluff that Nicole so brazenly brushed aside earlier. I was pretty into the fluff there, Nicole. I definitely was into the going to the back to school meetings and the PTA meetings and volunteering in the school and, you know, getting involved in as much stuff as I could. I resisted it at first when my kids first went to school because, well, you know, my kids have disabilities and things are hard and I can't really get away in the evenings. And how can you expect me to sell tickets for the fashion show? I have all this stuff that I have to do. I have to go to therapies. I have to do all this stuff. Poor me. And then it just got to the point where I realized my kids spend a lot of time in these buildings. They spend a lot of time with these people. They don't communicate with me real well, my kids or these people. Probably I should be around a little bit. So I started to seek, I was volunteering pretty well all through in the library, just to be in the building and meeting people and talking to people and getting to be known so that my kids weren't just, you know, the kids of someone who they never talked to, but Mrs. Morrow's kids, for better or worse, probably sometimes for worse. But I remember there was one time when, because I had good relationships with people from being in the building as a volunteer, one of the special ed teachers said to me, do you ever go to PTA meetings? Could you go to a PTA meeting? Because we have an issue with our classes and nobody from any of our classes goes to the PTA meetings, so it never gets brought up. So I went and I brought it up and I felt really good about it. So I started going to PTA meetings there so that there's a voice for classes who don't often have a voice. So that might be something to think about doing, especially if you have kids, as I did, who are, in special education or who are vulnerable in some way or who don't communicate well with what's going on at school, or who are in classrooms, put in classrooms for reasons that may not be appropriate. Inclusion was not well done, and I would not have known that had I not been there. So if you are able to swing it, I was working full-time some of that time, but I just told my boss, I need to go volunteer at the library this time on these days, and I will make up the work at home later. And he was fine with that. So if you can swing it, do all those fluffy things. Go, volunteer to be a chaperone on the field trip so that you can keep an eye on your kid. Go to all the meetings, go to the evening things, get to know other parents, let other parents get to know you. More than once I was volunteering at some event and some prissy little mom was saying that the special education parents never come to these things and help. And I was able to go to her, hello, nice to meet you. And they knew that I had been there a lot.
I think that is also a good point, getting to know the other parents.
Yes.
If you possibly can, because that just can come in handy in a lot of ways. Carpooling and,
right.
Advocacy and just little things like play dates or just anything. There's a lot there's a lot that can come with that too, if you can swing it.
Yes. And sometimes uncomfortably, but necessarily, they are the moms who will come to you and say, hey, I noticed this thing happening with your kid, or hey, your kid did something that my kid didn't like, or, and so then you kind of get that inside info that your kid is never going to give you, and the teachers maybe aren't going to give you because they don't want to get into it, but you kind of need to know. So you don't always like the moms for doing that, but it's good to know.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I just have to put a disclaimer. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying
you personally didn't want to do it, but no.
If you've got limited time and resources,
yes,
and you have to pick one thing, I would make that a priority.
Yes. I don't disagree.
It's nice to be able to have the support in the school from parents, certain parents.
Yeah.
Certain parents.
And there are probably kids who would benefit from mom not being around and just making their own way and figuring their stuff out. If you have one of those kids, then maybe you need to back off.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then you maybe need to back on.
Yeah.
Barge in.
Yeah. Because the kids that really sometimes, the kids that don't really need it are the ones usually with the parents in the building.
That's true.
Sadly enough. So I'm just saying, busy moms, if you feel like you can't do it all and you have to pick one thing, just check your kid's backpack.
Yes. That's good advice. And I did that a lot. And when teachers would write me notes, it made me very, very happy.
Yes. That's the other, yes. Teachers, you got to do your
When I would write
part
notes
too.
and send them back in the backpack, not so much.
Yeah.
Happiness on their end, but still.
Yes.
Not a two-way street.
That is, we have lots of advice to give, and we're good at doing that. And I think we did a good job with this one. I think there's a lot of practical advice in there.
Yep.
And if listeners have any other piece of advice, we welcome it. Please let us know.
And of course, as we discussed the other day, the most important thing is putting up a big, fancy lawn sign where your kid goes to school. That goes without saying.
Exactly.
That you're doing
exactly. Well, that's it for today's Round 4. Tune in tomorrow when we'll share our roundabout roundup of things we've been using or enjoying lately that we think deserve a shout out. Find all our episodes at parentingroundabout.com and talk back in the comments there, on our Facebook page, or on Twitter, where you will find us at Roundabout Chat.